Do you ever find yourself just, scrolling through headlines about some big legal case and feeling like you're missing something?
Oh, definitely. It's hard to get the real story, right? All the jargon, the back and forth.
Exactly. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're going deep on one of those really high-profile sagas, the whole legal battle between E. Jean Carroll and Donald Trump.
Yeah, and we've pulled together a lot of material court documents, news reports, the whole thing.
Our mission here is basically to give you a shortcut to really understanding it all.
That's right. We're aiming to go way beyond just the headlines. We'll lay out the timeline, share some genuinely surprising facts.
Things you might have missed.
Exactly. And explain the key legal ideas that really shape this whole thing. So by the end, you'll have a solid grasp of what went down, why it's significant, and maybe what we can take away from it.
Right, you'll be properly informed. So let's start at the beginning, the initial spark. This all kicked off back in 2019, didn't it? When E. Jean Carroll first publicly made the accusation.
It did. She alleged that Donald Trump had sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room. This was supposedly back in the mid-90s.
And Trump's reaction was pretty much instant, wasn't it?
Oh, immediate and very public. He denied it, flat out, said he'd never even met her.
Despite that photo.
Yeah, despite the 1987 photo of them together that surfaced. And he also made that comment that she was not his type.
Okay, so those statements, the denial, the not his type thing, that's what led to the first lawsuit.
Precisely. Carroll filed in November 2019 for defamation, based specifically on those comments he made.
Okay, simple enough so far. But then things took a turn.
Oh, yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting. September 2020, the Department of Justice steps in.
DOJ. Why?
Well, they argued that Trump was acting in his official capacity as president when he made those denials.
Seriously, denying a personal allegation is part of the job.
That was the argument. Their goal was to basically substitute the government for Trump in the lawsuit, move it to federal court under the Federal Tort Claims Act.
Which usually protects federal employees.
Right, when they're acting within the scope of their job. It was a really unusual move, kind of blurring the lines between personal conduct and official duties.
So what did the court make of that? Did they buy the DOJ's argument?
No, not at all. In October 2020, Judge Lewis Kaplan shut that down pretty firmly.
What was his reasoning?
He basically said, look, the president isn't a government employee in this specific legal context. And anyway, those comments Trump made, totally not job-related.
Makes sense.
The DOJ appealed at first, but interestingly, they actually dropped that whole immunity argument later on in July 2023.
Okay, so that DOJ angle eventually fizzled out, but the legal battles continued. What happened next?
Right. Fast forward to November 2022. Carroll files a second lawsuit. This one gets called Carroll II.
And this was possible because of a new law in New York, yeah.
Exactly. New York's Adult Survivors Act. It was a really important piece of legislation. It created a temporary window, like a look-back period.
Allowing victims of sexual assault to sue even if the normal time limit, the statute of limitations, had passed.
Precisely. So Carroll II brought back the defamation claim, but it also added a battery claim based on the alleged assault itself.
Okay, so this suit directly addressed the assault. What were the specifics alleged in Carroll II?
The allegations were very serious. Carroll claimed Trump manhandled her, pulled down her tights, groped her genitals, and raped her. She also spoke about the long-term impact, saying it had reputedly left her unable to form sexual relationships.
Wow. So the trial for Carroll II was in April 2023. What kind of evidence came out?
It was quite powerful. You had testimony from two friends Carroll confided in right after the alleged incident happened.
Corroboration.
Yes. Then there was the 1987 photo, of course, and significantly, the judge allowed testimony from two other women.
Other women who had accused Trump of assault.
Right, separately. It was allowed under a federal rule about showing a potential pattern of behavior.
What else?
The Access Hollywood tape was played. Trump's defense tried to dismiss it as just locker room talk.
I remember that phrase.
And critically, Trump's own deposition from October 2022 was presented.
Yes, the deposition. Tell us about that. What was so striking there?
It was quite something. He denied reaching out to Bergdorf Goodman about the incident. He accused Carroll and her lawyer of being in league with Hillary Clinton.
With proof.
No, he admitted he didn't have any proof. He actually threatened to sue them, called the whole thing a hoax.
A hoax. Like other things he'd called hoaxes.
Exactly. He compared it to what he called ruses related to Russia and Ukraine investigations, said it was meant to derail his 2024 run.
And wasn't there that moment with the photograph?
Oh, yeah. That was memorable. When they showed him the 1987 photo of him and Carol, he mistook her for his ex-wife, Marla Maples.
Which seems to directly contradict the whole not my type defense.
It certainly raised eyebrows, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of highlighted a potential inconsistency.
Given all this, and who was involved, the trial itself must have been intense. What about security?
Extremely tight. Judge Kaplan actually ordered an anonymous jury.
Anonymous, why?
Because of what the judge called Trump's incendiary rhetoric and, threats made against other officials in other cases, the jurors were even brought in by U.S. Marshals through an underground garage.
Wow. That's not typical.
Definitely not. It just shows the kind of charged atmosphere surrounding this.
And during the trial, Carol's testimony itself was very direct.
It was. She stated very clearly, Donald Trump raped me.
But she also explained why she hadn't always used that word publicly, right?
Yes, and that was quite thought-provoking. She said she initially avoided the word rape because she felt it sounded, well, her words were sexy and had many sexual connotations.
And her experience wasn't about sex.
No, she said it just hurt. Which really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how we define sexual assault and how survivors experience and articulate it. It's often about power and violation, not desire.
Absolutely. A really important point.
It challenges us to broaden our understanding, maybe.
So that trial concluded in May 2023. What was the jury's decision?
The jury found Trump liable for both sexual abuse and defamation against Carol.
And the damages.
They ordered him to pay $5 million.
Okay, $5 million. A significant verdict. But, as we know, the story didn't stop there.
No, not at all. Literally the day after the verdict.
He was on TV, wasn't he? CNN.
Yep. And he basically doubled down, called Carol a whack job, said the trial was rigged, denied the rape again, claimed he didn't know who she was.
So, repeating the very statements the jury just found defamatory.
Exactly. Which led Carol's team to start talking about a third lawsuit.
Another defamation suit.
Yeah.
Based on these new comments.
Right. Seeking maybe $10 million or more in additional damages. It really shows how defamation can be an ongoing issue if the statements continue.
The harm keeps happening.
Precisely.
Then, fast forward again to September 2023. Judge Kaplan steps in again.
Yes, he issued something called a partial summary judgment.
Okay, break that down. What does that mean here?
It means the judge looked at the evidence already established, particularly the May 2023 verdict, and ruled that some key facts were no longer in dispute.
Like what?
Crucially, he ruled that Trump was already liable for defaming Carol with his original 2019 statements.
Because the jury had already found the assault happened.
Exactly. Kaplan stated plainly that the May 2023 verdict established the falsity of Trump's 2019 denials because, quote, the sexual assault occurred.
So the next trial wouldn't redebate whether the assault happened.
Correct. That was settled legally. The upcoming trial, set for January 2024, was purely to figure out how much more in damages Trump owed for those 2019 statements, now confirmed as defamatory. It wasn't a do-over.
Got it. So the scope was much narrower. Were there other rules set for that January trial?
Oh, yes. Judge Kaplan made some very specific pre-trial rulings to keep things focused. Trump's lawyers were barred from arguing he didn't sexually abuse her or that he didn't act with actual malice.
Remind us what actual malice means in this context.
Sure. It's a legal standard in defamation. It means the person making the statement either knew it was false or acted with a reckless disregard for whether it's true or false. It's a high bar.
Okay, so they couldn't argue those points. What else was off limits?
Things like discussion of DNA evidence, Carol's choice of lawyer who paid her legal fees, her personal life, or any suggestion she was just trying to sell books, all prohibited.
Really trying to streamline it to just the damages calculation.
That was clearly the intent. Prevent rehashing old arguments.
So the January 2024 trial happens. Trump attended this one.
He did. Which drew a lot of attention. Again, it was an anonymous jury, 9 members this time. Nicknames were even suggested for them.
Still high security concerns.
Seems so. And quite notably, Trump himself was posting about Carol on Truth Social like 20, 30 times during the trial.
While the trial was ongoing.
Yep. And his lawyer apparently got a warning from the judge for trying to bring up arguments that had already been ruled out.
Must have been quite the scene in court. Did Trump testify?
Briefly. He essentially repeated what he'd said in his 2022 deposition, that it was all a hoax, a con job.
And how did Carol's team argue for the amount of damages?
That was interesting. They actually brought up Trump's testimony from a totally separate case, that New York civil fraud trial.
Where he had testified about his wealth.
Exactly. Where he argued he was worth billions. Carroll's lawyers used that, saying, look, given his own statements about his wealth, the $10 million or more they were asking for was actually pretty conservative.
Using his own words against him, essentially.
The strategic move, yeah. Tying the requested damages to his stated ability to pay.
Okay, so what was the final verdict from the January 2024 jury?
It was huge. Over $83 million awarded to E. Jean Carroll.
$83 million. Wow. How did that break down?
Well, there was $7.3 million for damage to her reputation, $11 million for emotional distress.
Okay, that's $18.3 million in compensatory damages.
Right, and then a massive $65 million in punitive damages.
$65 million punitive. What's the purpose of such a large punitive award?
Punitive damages aren't really about making the victim whole. They're about punishing the defendant for particularly bad conduct and deterring them and others from doing it again. The amount is often linked to the defendant's wealth, the idea being it needs to be significant enough to actually sting and send a message.
A very expensive message in this case.
Undeniably.
So what happened immediately after this huge verdict? Trump appealed.
Of course. And to pause the collection of that money while the appeal goes forward, he had to post a bond.
How much was the bond?
$91.63 million. That's 110% of the judgment, which is standard practice to cover interest that might build up during the appeal.
Where did the bond come from?
From a subsidiary of the insurance giant Chubb. Though it's worth noting, Chubb's CEO made a public statement saying the bond wasn't an endorsement and had, quote, nothing to do with the underlying merits of the case.
Distancing the company from the politics.
Pretty clearly, yes.
So where does that leave things right now? What's the absolute latest?
Okay, so the appeals process is ongoing. The federal appeals court already upheld the first verdict, the $5 million one, back in December 2024.
Okay.
Trump asked for a rehearing by the full appeals court that's called en banc, but that request was denied just last month, June 2025.
So the $5 million judgment looks pretty solid. What about the $83 million?
Well, also in June 2025, Trump's team filed another motion trying to get that $83.3 million judgment thrown out, this time again bringing up the argument of presidential immunity.
Still fighting it.
Absolutely. The legal maneuvering continues.
You know, looking at this whole Carroll saga, it's obviously a huge case on its own.
Yeah.
But if you sort of zoom out, it feels like part of a bigger picture with Trump and the legal system.
That's a really important point. Some legal experts have described him exactly that way as a, quote, prolific and sophisticated litigant.
Meaning he uses the courts a lot and strategically.
Yes, and the suggestion is sometimes using them to pursue grievances against political opponents or critics. It definitely tests the legal system.
Can you give a couple of other examples just briefly to show this pattern?
Sure. I mean, think about other defamation suits he's been involved in. Sometimes he's the one suing, like, against the author Timothy O'Brien or CNN or even the Pulitzer Board.
And sometimes he's the one being sued for defamation.
Right, like the case with Summer Zervos, another former Apprentice contestant. Then you've got copyright issues.
The music.
Yeah, his campaigns have been sued recently for using songs without permission. Eddie Grant's Electric Avenue, that Isaac Hayes track, Hold On, I'm Coming, even Beyoncé's Freedom.
And lawsuits against tech companies.
Those too. There were settlements recently. Meta, which is Facebook, paid $25 million in January 2025. And X, Twitter, settled for $10 million plus legal fees just this past February.
And, of course, the big New York civil fraud case.
Can't forget that one. Initially over $355 million ordered, though that got reduced to $175 million he had to bond for appeal back in April 2024.
So yeah, putting the Carroll case alongside all those, it paints a picture.
It really does illustrate that characterization of him as a constant presence in the court system across many different kinds of legal actions.
And one more thing, this case actually changed New York law, didn't it?
It did, indirectly perhaps, but the timing is notable. In January 2024, a new law passed in New York that expanded the legal definition of rape.
How so?
It now includes non-consensual vaginal, anal, and oral contact. It broadens the definition beyond just penile vaginal penetration. That law took effect non-retroactively in September 2024. Many see it as influenced by the discussions that cases like Carroll's brought to light.
Aligning the law more closely with, perhaps, how people actually experience assault.
That seems to be the goal, yes.
Well, we have certainly covered a ton of ground today.
Yeah.
This deep dive into the E. Jean Carroll legal saga. From the first allegations through those really groundbreaking trials, the new laws, the appeals. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And stepping back, thinking about the bigger picture, This whole case throws a spotlight on just how complex defamation law is becoming, especially now with social media and how fast information
Yeah, and
spreads.
how public figures comment constantly.
Right. And it also shows the power of civil lawsuits, doesn't it? How they can be a vehicle for seeking accountability and maybe even shifting how society understands things like abuse.
Which leads to a final thought maybe for you listening. We live in this time where public figures have so many platforms to speak, to attack, to respond. So what does this specific case, the E. Jean Carroll saga, teach us about where things are heading?
Yeah, thinking about free speech versus accountability, the role of the courts. How does one high profile, high stakes battle like this shape our view on justice, on reputation, on how we even talk about these things in our very honest world?
Something to definitely mull over.
For sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.